She didn't flinch when they called her sweetheart. She'd heard worse in Helmand. But here, in the sterile light of the Pentagon's E-ring, it stung differently, quieter, more civilized, but still sharp in the way it cut. Just the help, sweetheart, stay quiet. The colonel hadn't even looked at her when he said it. He was too busy checking his notes for the morning briefing, too busy living in a world that had already decided who she was. Kira Brennan poured coffee into a silver carafe and said nothing. Her uniform now was a white button-down, black slacks, a name tag that meant nothing. Her hands moved with practiced precision, steady, controlled, efficient. Every motion was deliberate because control was all she had left. If you looked at her, really looked, you wouldn't have seen the soldier she used to be. You'd have seen the quiet woman behind the cart, eyes down, lips pressed into something almost neutral. You wouldn't have seen the dust, the blood, the sound of aircraft screaming overhead. You wouldn't have heard the calm voice in the middle of chaos saying, "Cleared hot." But he saw her. The Admiral. And when he said the two words, Reaper 6, the entire room froze. It happened like a shift in gravity. The low murmur of officers exchanging plans, the shuffle of papers, the clink of cups, all of it stopped. The air thickened. Kira didn't move. Her chest tightened. She hadn't heard that call sign in 14 months. The words felt foreign now, like a name from a dream she wasn't sure had ever been real. Reaper 6, the Admiral said again, eyes locked on her. He was older now, silver hair, the kind of posture that came from decades in uniform. Calm, commanding, and in his voice something that wasn't just recognition, it was respect. The others didn't understand. They glanced between them, frowning, confused. "Sir," a major asked, "who?" The Admiral didn't answer immediately. He flipped a page in his folder, then looked back up. "Staff Sergeant Kira Brennan," he said quietly, "75th Ranger Regiment, 3 deployments, 47 confirmed strikes, 0 friendly fire incidents." The room fell into stunned silence. Kira wanted to disappear. She wanted to melt into the floor, vanish back into anonymity. But the words hung there, Staff Sergeant, Reaper 6. She remembered that name like a phantom scar. The colonel cleared his throat, awkward. "Admiral, there must be some mistake. She's a joint terminal attack controller," the Admiral interrupted. "One of the best I've ever worked with." His tone was calm but final, the kind of voice that left no room for correction. The colonel's expression faltered. "Sir, this is a classified briefing." "I'm aware," the Admiral said, "and Staff Sergeant Brennan still holds a top-secret SCI clearance through her contractor role. In fact," he paused, "she has higher clearance than half the people in this room." Kira's pulse hammered in her ears. It was true. Her clearance had never lapsed, though nobody had needed it, not until now. She wanted to speak, to tell him she wasn't that person anymore, but the words wouldn't come. The Admiral gestured to an empty chair. "Staff Sergeant, have a seat." Her stomach dropped. She didn't move at first. The room had turned, every face trained on her, curious, skeptical, some even annoyed. She wasn't supposed to be in this room. She was background noise, the woman with coffee, the help. And yet, the Admiral was waiting. Kira stepped forward, each movement deliberate. She sat down, back straight, hands folded in her lap. Her heartbeat drummed against her ribs, but her breathing stayed steady, a habit she'd learned long ago in a desert where steady meant alive. No one spoke. The colonel's pen hovered midair. The major who'd asked about donuts earlier looked like he'd swallowed one sideways. She felt their stares, the quiet disbelief, the faint undertone of something else, discomfort maybe. That a woman, this woman, had once directed airstrikes that saved lives. She could almost hear the thoughts behind their silence. She doesn't look like a soldier. She doesn't look like someone who's called in death. They didn't know that you don't have to look like anything to do what she did. The Admiral broke the silence. "We have a situation." He clicked the remote. The wall screen lit up, a satellite feed, grayscale terrain carved with ridges and valleys. A red circle blinked in the center. Special Operations Team 12 hours into recon. They've been compromised. Enemy movement closing in. Terrain's too steep for extraction. We'll need air support before we can get them out. He looked around the table. The JTAC on the ground is down. Medical issue. We're short on time. A colonel leaned forward. What about tasking the strike coordination to an overhead asset? Too risky, the admiral said. The terrain makes it hard to identify targets. We need someone who knows what it's like to do this under pressure. His eyes drifted back to Kira. She felt it, the weight of that look. Staff Sergeant Brennan has done this, he said simply. In worse conditions, under fire. The colonel frowned. Sir, with respect, she's been out for over a year. Procedures change. The fundamentals don't, the admiral replied. She's called 47 airstrikes without a single friendly fire. I trust her judgment. Kira met his eyes. Sir, it's been a while. He nodded once. I know, but muscle memory doesn't fade. Can you do this? She hesitated. The truth was she didn't know. 14 months was a lifetime when you'd spent 6 years living on adrenaline, in the sound of radios and rotor wash. She tried to become normal again, to walk through grocery aisles without scanning exits, to sleep without hearing the dull echo of distant ordnance. But the truth was, part of her still lived there, in that chaos, in that strange, focused calm that only existed when everything else fell apart. Can you do this? He asked again. Her answer was quiet, yes, sir. The admiral turned to the colonel. I'm authorizing her terminal control under emergency authority. Log it. I'll sign the documentation myself. No one argued. Minutes later, Kira was in the operations center, screens glowing, radios crackling, the hum of tension in the air. It was a different kind of battlefield, but familiar in all the right ways. She slipped on a headset. Her fingers brushed the mic. The screens in front of her flickered with live drone feed, jagged ridgelines, figures moving, infrared strobes marking friendly forces. The team on the ground was running out of time. Enemy heat signatures were closing in 20, maybe 30 fighters, converging fast. Kira took a breath. The old rhythm returned. Target grid, offset distance, elevation, wind direction, attack heading. She started building the 9-line brief in her head. Then the radio crackled. Reaper 6, this is Gunslinger 2-1. Flight of 2 F-16s on station, standing by for tasking. The call sign hit her like a spark. Reaper 6. She closed her eyes, let the sound settle. Her voice came out steady, professional, the same tone she'd used in Helmand, in Kandahar, in Nangar. Gunslinger 2-1, Reaper 6, troops in contact. I've got enemy personnel moving to encircle friendly positions. I need immediate suppression on the marked grid. She transmitted the coordinates, verified the grid, confirmed the elevation. Target confirmed, the pilot replied. In from the west, requesting clearance hot. Kira studied the screen. The enemy fighters were within 200 meters of the friendlies. Timing mattered now. Every second she waited risked lives. Every second too soon risked killing her own. Laser spot is active, she said. Target confirmed, you're cleared hot. The F-16 rolled in. Through the feed, she watched the bomb release, the laser painting its path across the mountain ridge. Then impact. A bright flash, a ripple of dust and rock cascading down the slope. Enemy movement gone. The pilot's voice came through calm. Good effect on target. Copy, Kira replied. Reattack northern cluster, same heading. Within minutes the second jet dropped. Another clean strike, another ripple of silence. And then stillness. The team on the ground called it in. All clear, extraction route open. Hellos moved in low and fast. She could almost hear the blades in her memory, the deep, thunderous thump of salvation. "Team is out," the voice confirmed. "No casualties." Kira exhaled, long, slow. Her hands were steady, her breathing even. She hadn't realized until that moment how much she'd missed this kind of focus, the kind where the world narrows to one purpose: keep them alive. The Admiral stood behind her. She didn't need to turn to know he was watching. He said nothing at first, then quietly, "That's how it's done." Kira nodded once. It wasn't pride she felt. It was something quieter, something that sat deep in her chest, the reminder that even after everything, she still knew how to matter. The debrief blurred together signatures, reports, quiet congratulations. The mission had been clean, the extraction flawless. When it was over, she found herself back in the hallway, the same hallway where it had begun. The coffee cart was still there, the thermoses empty. The air smelled faintly of polish and burnt beans. "You shouldn't be pouring coffee," the Admiral said. Kira didn't look up right away. "I needed a job." "I understand," he said softly, "but you're wasted here." He reached into his jacket, handed her a small card. "I'm assembling a training cadre," he said. "Joint Operations Coordination. We need people like you, people who have done this for real. The pay's better. The work matters. Think about it." Kira turned the card over in her hand. Just a number, an email, nothing fancy. But it felt heavier than anything she'd held in a long time. "You earned your place in that room today," he said. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." He walked away. Kira stood alone, surrounded by motion, officers passing, doors closing, the quiet hum of the Pentagon returning to normal. Normal. She wasn't sure she believed in that word anymore. She thought of her father, standing in a forest after a fire, teaching her to read the wind. She thought of her mother, voice steady over the radio, talking strangers through panic. She thought of all the nights she'd spent pretending she left the war behind, when really part of her had been waiting for something like this. Something to remind her who she was. She slipped the card into her pocket. For the first time in months, her step felt certain. And somewhere deep inside, a voice, calm, quiet, unflinching, whispered again. Reaper 6 cleared hot. Why didn't she call him back that night? The card was still sitting on her kitchen counter, right next to the chipped mug she'd carried since Helmand. White ceramic, black ring stains at the bottom. 75th RGR printed on the side. She stopped drinking from it months ago, but she couldn't throw it away. It was strange how something so small could hold an entire lifetime. Kira sat at the small table by the window, watching the slow bleed of headlights move across the dark street below. Arlington was quiet this time of night. Too quiet. No helicopters, no radios, just the hum of streetlights and the distant siren echoing somewhere she couldn't see. She rubbed her thumb across the edge of the Admiral's card. The print was simple: Rear Admiral James Haynes, Joint Operations Command, one phone number, one email. No titles, no slogans, just quiet authority. She'd been staring at it for hours. Her laptop sat open on the table, screen dimmed. Job listings glowed faintly: administrative assistant, security specialist, data analyst. None of them fit, none of them felt real. She tried civilian life, she really had. Office jobs, structured hours, coworkers who asked about the war like it was a movie she'd once seen. But the truth was she didn't belong anywhere, not yet. And she hated that she still missed it: the noise, the chaos, the purpose. Her phone buzzed once. A text from an old teammate, Barnes, the last ranger she'd deployed with. "Saw your name in a report today. Heard what happened. Reaper 6 back in the saddle." She didn't reply. She couldn't. Because she wasn't sure what it had meant, that moment in the operations center. Headset on, her voice steady, her pulse in sync with a jet miles above the earth. It had felt like slipping back into her own skin. She pushed the laptop shut, leaned back in the chair and let the silence settle. Maybe it was foolish to hope that one moment could change everything, but sometimes one moment did. And yet there was something she hadn't told anyone, not even Haynes. Something from her last mission. Something that still visited her in dreams. The memory always began the same way: the sandstorm, the call for air support, the sudden radio static. Helmand 14 months ago, her final deployment. The platoon had been pinned on a slope above a valley village. Taliban fire from multiple compounds. Visibility 10 meters. She crouched beside Sergeant Mills, her radio pressed against her shoulder, wind ripping through her mic. Negative contact on target. Visibility near zero, she'd said. We're blind down here. Reaper 6 confirm friendly positions, came the pilot's voice. Calm, detached. Confirmed, marking target with IR laser. She remembered the coordinates, even now, burned into her like an equation she couldn't forget. She called it in, confirmed the offset. But something had gone wrong. The wind shifted mid-drop. The smoke plume masked the IR. The bomb hit 20 meters short. No one died, but the concussion wave threw one of her rangers down the hill, broke his leg. And the look he gave her later, not anger, not blame, just quiet pain, quiet disappointment. That was the last strike she'd ever called. It hadn't been failure, but it hadn't been perfect either. And for someone like her, not perfect felt like a wound that never closed. She'd come home a month later, honorable discharge, commendations, letters of appreciation. But all she remembered was that one call, that one almost. Sometimes when she closed her eyes, she heard the pilot again, Reaper 6, say again last transmission. And her voice in the static, trembling just slightly. Cleared hot. The next morning, Kira woke before sunrise. Habit. The light hadn't even touched the windows yet. She showered, dressed, tied her hair back the way she used to under her helmet. Then she picked up the card. She dialed. 3 rings, then a familiar voice, crisp, alert, but warmer this time. "Brennan, I was hopping you call." "Morning, sir," she said quietly. "I assume you're not calling to say thank you for the coffee." A ghost of a smile touched her face. "No, sir." "Good," Haynes said, "because I've got something better." The Joint Operations Coordination Training Facility was nothing like the Pentagon. Smaller, rougher, real. Concrete floors, whiteboards full of scribbled coordinates and call signs, screens showing live feeds from joint exercises across the country. Kira stepped inside wearing civilian clothes, but everyone there recognized the posture: straight back, focused eyes, economy of movement. Haynes met her at the entrance. "Glad you came," he said. "You'll fit right in." He walked her through the facility. This place trains the next generation of JTACs, fire support officers, and air-ground coordinators. They've got simulators, live comms networks, and mock control rooms. But what they don't have, he looked at her, is someone who's done it for real. Kira's jaw tightened. There are plenty who have done it. Not like you. He wasn't flattering her, just stating fact. Haynes led her into a small observation room, overlooking a simulator bay. Below, 3 young candidates were running a scenario. She watched their screens: virtual terrain, blinking icons, simulated radio chatter. "Troops in contact," one shouted, requesting close air support. Another fumbled his coordinates. The simulated bombs hit wide. Friendly units blinked red. "Freeze it," Haynes ordered. The simulation stopped mid-blast. He looked down at them. "That's what happens when you guess, and guessing gets people killed." He turned to Kira. "They need someone to teach them what precision feels like, not from a manual, from memory." She hesitated. Watching those faces, nervous, eager, she saw herself in them. Before the deployments, before the weight of what it meant to get it wrong. "I don't know if I can teach that," she said finally. You can, Haynes replied, because you remember what it costs. The first day she trained them, she barely spoke. She watched instead how they held their radios, how they built their 9 lines, how they hesitated before saying cleared hot. She corrected small things, hand placement, radio discipline, tone control. But most of what she said wasn't about procedure. Your voice is the last thing they hear before the bomb drops, she told them. If your voice shakes, they'll feel it. Keep it steady, even if your heart is. She showed them how to visualize terrain from sound, how to map mental grids in seconds, how to trust instinct but never ego. One trainee, a young lieutenant, asked, "How do you stay calm under fire?" Kira thought for a long time before answering. "You don't," she said. "You just get good at sounding like you are." They laughed, not mockingly, but with the kind of respect soldiers have for someone who's earned her scars. By the end of the week, they'd started calling her ma'am less and Brennan more. It wasn't disrespect, it was recognition. And maybe that was what she'd needed all along. Not glory, not medals. Just to belong again. But it wasn't over. On her 3rd week at the training center, Haynes called her into his office. Something in his voice told her it wasn't routine. "There's an active operation overseas," he said, closing the door. "One of our teams is embedded with local forces. Their JTAC was hit. They're coordinating from a forward base, but the pilot comms are unstable. Command wants an advisor remote, someone who can bridge the gap." Kira felt her pulse shift. "You want me?" "I'm asking," Haynes said. "Not ordering. You'd coordinate from here, not deploy, but it's live. Real people, real consequences." She was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "I'll do it." He nodded. "I thought you'd say that." That night as she left the facility, the air was heavy with rain. Streetlights glowed off wet asphalt. She walked past a row of cars, the Admiral's voice echoing in her head. "You earned your place in that room." She thought about everything that had brought her here, the quiet mornings pouring coffee, the looks that said you're invisible, the single moment that had changed everything. And she thought about the mission that was waiting now. Another team, another ridgeline, another decision that could mean life or death. She wasn't doing it for recognition. She wasn't doing it to feel whole again. She was doing it because she couldn't stand the thought of someone else not making it home, not if she could help. She looked up at the night sky, rain tracing down her face like silent tears. "Reaper 6, she whispered to herself, the old call sign finding her again. Then softer like a vow. "Cleared hot." Why was her heart pounding like this? It was just another console, another mission feed, another calm voice coming through the headset. But something about tonight was different. The air in the joint operations room felt tighter, electric, like the seconds before a storm. "Target grid coming online," the text said. "We've got satellite feed and forward telemetry. You're live in 30 seconds, Brennan." Kira adjusted her headset. The hum of electronics filled her ears, but beneath it she could hear her own breathing, steady, measured, controlled. The same cadence she'd used in Helmand when she'd been surrounded by chaos, the rhythm that had kept her alive. She hadn't been in an operation like this since the day she left Afghanistan, and yet it felt like she'd never left. "Reaper 6, this is Thunder Actual. Do you read?" The voice on the other end was rough, full of static, a male tone, calm but strained, the sound of someone trying to sound unafraid. "Thunder Actual, Reaper 6 copies loud and clear," Kira said. "Confirm situation. Troops in contact. We're pinned down 2 clicks north of the riverbed. Enemies moving through the tree line fast." Kira scanned the screen. A valley of rough hills, heat signatures flickering in red. She recognized the pattern immediately. Encirclement tactics, classic insurgent move. "How many on your team?" 8 + 2 host nation, the voice said. "Our JTAC's down. I'm running comms, but we're losing daylight. Understood, you're doing fine, Kira said quietly. We'll get you out. She began building the 9-line brief: target coordinates, grid reference, elevation, offset distance. The map rotated and zoomed as she input the data. The drone feed stabilized. She could almost feel the heat radiating from the desert through the screens. Reaper 6, this is Talon Flight. 2 A-10s on station waiting for tasking. The corner of Kira's mouth lifted. Warthogs. The sound of their cannon was unmistakable, angry thunder rolling through the sky. She called them in before. She trusted them. Copy Talon. Stand by for target brief. Her voice dropped into that calm, clipped rhythm that always came back when lives depended on it. Target is enemy infantry in open terrain, moving east through the tree line at grid 38 Sierra. She read out the coordinates, confirmed the elevation, wind, and offset. The pilots repeated every number back without a flaw. Then came the question that always made time slow. Talon Flight requests clearance hot. Kira's hand hovered over the transmit button. Her mind flashed to the memory she hated, the one from Helmand. The near miss, the blast, the look in Sergeant Mills's eyes. She blinked once hard, focused. Laser spot confirmed, she said. Friendly forces marked with infrared strobes, safe distance confirmed. Talon Flight cleared hot. Seconds stretched. The feed blinked white as the first strike hit. Dust rolled up the hillside like a wave. Kira waited for the smoke to clear. When it did, the red icons vanished one by one. Talon reports good effect on target, came the pilot's voice. Secondary explosions, possible ammo cache. Kira exhaled slowly. Copy. Re-attack on remaining movement North Ridge. The second pass was cleaner, faster, controlled violence wrapped in precision. The ridge went still. Thunder actual confirmed status. A pause, then a shaky laugh. We're good. You just saved our ass, Reaper 6. Kira's hand tightened around the headset. She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was level. Copy that, you're welcome. The feed dimmed. The room went quiet again. Just the soft hum of monitors and the rhythmic ticking of keyboards. The operation was over. But Kira didn't move. She sat there, staring at the last frame on the screen, dust settling over a valley halfway around the world. She could almost smell it. The burnt metal, the smoke, the silence that came after the strike. Her pulse was steady now, too steady. You all right? A tech asked gently. Kira nodded, even though she was. Yeah, just needed a minute. She pulled off the headset. The moment she did, the room felt smaller. The sound of breathing, of typing, of ordinary life pressing in on her. It wasn't the chaos she missed. It was the clarity, the simplicity of purpose. There was no gray area out there. You either did the job or people died. Here it was harder. The noise of normal life was messier. She didn't sleep that night. She sat in her apartment again, lights off, rain streaking the window. The headset still hung around her neck, its cord trailing across the table like an umbilical line to another life. Her mind replayed every radio call, every confirmation, every strike. Then came the voice she hadn't heard in years, Sergeant Mills, from the memory she could never erase. Reaper 6, say again your last. And her own, trembling reply, buried deep under the sound of rotor blades and fire. Cleared hot. She closed her eyes and pressed her palms to her face. She'd been perfect tonight. Every line, every coordinate flawless. But somehow it didn't feel like victory. Maybe because there was no blood on her hands this time, only ghosts. The next morning, Haynes found her sitting in the break room, nursing a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. He didn't speak right away, just sat across from her, studying her face. You did good work last night, he said finally. Kira gave a faint nod. I did my job. That's more than most can say. She didn't respond. He leaned forward. You've still got it, Brennan. but that look in your eyes tells me you're not sure what to do with it." She met his gaze. "It's not about ability, it's about weight." "Wait." She searched for the words. "Every time I key that mic, I know what comes next. Someone dies. Sometimes they deserve it. Sometimes they don't. But either way, it's me that says it's okay." Haynes nodded slowly. "And if you do, then someone else dies instead." Silence. "Welcome to command," he said quietly. She gave a dry laugh. "You think that's comforting?" "No, but it's honest." He leaned back, eyes softening. "You know, I used to think leadership was about orders. Turns out it's about memory. The good ones don't forget what it costs." She looked down at her coffee. "Yeah, that's the problem." He smiled faintly. "You'll figure it out, you always do." Then he stood, resting a hand on the table. "There's another mission coming down the line in a few weeks. No pressure, no promises, but they'll want someone with your calm. Think about it." When he left, Kira stared at the empty doorway for a long time. She didn't need to think about it. She already knew. She was back in it now, not because she craved the danger, because she couldn't unlearn purpose. That night she walked through the rain again, hood up, hands in her pockets. The city lights shimmered on the pavement. The world kept moving, unaware of what she'd done 12 hours ago, unaware that lives had hung in her voice. She paused at a crosswalk, watching strangers hurry past. Business suits, tourists, a couple arguing over a map, the normal world. And she wondered, what would they see if they knew? Would they see a hero, a killer, or just a woman trying to live with both? She didn't know anymore. But somewhere inside, a thought surfaced, soft, almost invisible. Maybe this was what survival looked like. Not glory, not peace, just endurance. As she crossed the street, a low rumble echoed overhead, thunder rolling over the city, distant but familiar. For a moment, it sounded like the A-10s again. She smiled faintly, barely there. Reaper 6 wasn't dead, she'd just been waiting. And now she was listening again. What if she froze again? That question lived in her head now, an unwelcome whisper she couldn't silence. Even after the success of that mission, even after the team was safe, it lingered. The memory of that hesitation, that heartbeat before she said cleared hot, refused to leave her. 2 weeks later, another call came. Haynes stood in her doorway, arms crossed, eyes sharper than usual. "You still up for live coordination?" Kira nodded. "Always." "Good," he said. "This one's different, bigger, multinational task force, jungle terrain, radio interference. They want you in the loop from start to finish." She didn't ask why, she never did, because the answer was always the same. Someone needed her calm, someone needed Reaper 6. The operations center buzzed with tension. Screens glowed with weather data, topographical overlays, comms frequencies. Voices layered in a language of acronyms and urgency. Kira slipped into her seat at Console 3, headset already in hand. "Reaper 6, this is Iron Dagger Actual. Do you copy?" "Iron Dagger, Reaper 6 copies. Go ahead." Static crackled. "We've got movement east of our patrol line. Thermal shows 6, no, make that 8 contacts moving uphill. They're hunting us." She magnified the feed, dense canopy, humidity fogging the image, heat signatures blurred but distinct. She could almost smell the jungle, wet, heavy, alive. "Copy, confirm your position. Friendly perimeter markers active." "Affirmative, blue light strobes online. We've got locals with us, non-combatants. Can't risk a wide strike." Her eyes narrowed. "Then we'll be surgical." She began scanning for angles, calculating terrain slope, line of sight, wind offset. Every detail mattered. Mist and vegetation could throw off targeting pods. A degree too far, a single misread coordinate and you hit the wrong ridge. "Reaper 6, this is Hammer Flight. 2 F-15Es loaded and waiting." "Copy Hammer, you're on standby." She took a breath. Her heartbeat slowed. The world narrowed to sound and numbers. "Target grid locked," she said. "Request laser confirmation from drone." A pause, then laser active, spot painted. "Copy, you're cleared in from the west. Maintain attack heading 080. Friendlies offset 220 meters north. I say again, 220 north." The pilots acknowledged, their voices steady. They'd done this before, but it was Kira's tone that set the rhythm, the unseen heartbeat of the mission. Seconds later, the strike hit. The canopy erupted in a bloom of orange light and black smoke. The concussive wave rippled across the feed. Then silence. The red heat signatures disappeared one by one. "Good effect on target," Hammer Flight reported. "Copy," Kira said. "Hold pattern, scanning for secondary movement." The drone shifted. More heat signatures emerged deeper in the trees. They were moving fast toward the civilians. Kira frowned. "Iron Dagger, you've got more inbound. Estimate 20 plus. "Jesus," the ground commander muttered. "We can't move fast enough. We've got kids here." Kira stared at the monitor. Her pulse didn't rise, but something cold slid through her chest. She'd seen this before. Outnumbered, cornered. 100 different valleys, 100 different desperate voices calling through static. Her voice softened, low, calm. "I need you to trust me, Iron Dagger. We're going to buy you time." "Copy that, Reaper 6, whatever you need." She pulled up alternate strike angles, her mind racing. The enemy was weaving through the tree line, too close to civilians for ordnance. She needed indirect suppression, something heavy but clean. "Reaper 6 to Hammer Flight, abort close pattern. Shift to strafing runs, low altitude north to south. I'll mark safe corridor for friendlies." The pilot hesitated. "Ma'am, risk factor's high." "I know," she cut in. "Do it." She switched to the drone operator. "Mark the path with IR strobes. We'll open a corridor." The airspace filled with sound, jet turbines roaring through the comms, the distant chatter of gunfire bleeding into the feed. Then the warthogs descended. She watched their cannons tear through the tree line with mechanical precision, violence contained inside control. The friendlies moved through the gap she'd carved for them, civilians clinging to their shoulders. "Corridor clear," the ground commander breathed. "We're moving. You just saved 30 lives." Kira didn't answer. She couldn't. Because she'd seen something on the screen, something off. One of the flashes hadn't been red or blue. It had been white. Wrong frequency, wrong shape. She magnified it. A body, small, not armed, lying still beside the tree line. For a moment her breath caught. "Reaper 6, the tech said. "You good?" "Yeah," she whispered. Just confirming damage." But inside, the silence turned heavy again. She'd done everything right, every calculation perfect. And still, someone innocent had been caught in the blast. She knew the report would call it collateral damage. Clean language for something that never felt clean. When the mission ended, the room exhaled as one. High fives, relief. Another success logged. Kira just sat there, headset in her lap, staring at the blank screen. Haynes approached quietly. "They're alive because of you." She nodded faintly. "Most of them." His brow furrowed. "You did your job." "Yeah," she said, her voice distant. "I always do." He watched her for a moment, then said softly, "You can't save everyone, Kira." She looked up at him then, eyes tired but steady. "Then why does it feel like failure when I do?" He didn't have an answer. That night she walked until her legs ached. Through the rain, through the noise of the city that didn't know her name. Every window reflected a life that wasn't hers. Every sound was distant, detached. She ended up by the Potomac, the river black and wide beneath the lights. The water moved slow, heavy, like time itself had thickened. She sat on the railing and watched the current. She thought about all the voices she'd heard through radios, pilots, ground teams, commanders. Hundreds of names. Only a handful she'd ever met in person. Maybe that was mercy, maybe it was punishment. Her father used to tell her, the hardest part about fighting fires isn't the flames, it's knowing what had to burn to stop them. She finally understood what he meant. She whispered it to the water, as if saying it aloud might make it lighter. You can't save everyone. Then she added, almost too softly to hear, but I wish I could. When she returned to the center the next day, no one mentioned the civilian casualty. On paper, the mission was flawless. The brass was pleased. The coalition partners grateful. Another win in a war that never officially ended. But Haynes saw it in her face, the distance, the quiet weight. He didn't push, he just said, "We've got downtime coming, take it." Kira nodded, but she knew she wouldn't, because somewhere out there another team would call for help, and she'd answer. Not because she wanted to, but because she had to. Because that was who Reaper 6 was. And maybe, she thought, some of us don't stop fighting, we just change the battlefield. She wasn't sure what hurt more, the silence or the applause. When the room erupted after the debrief, everyone seemed relieved, proud. Another operation, another clean extraction. The mission reports looked perfect. No friendly losses. High-value targets neutralized. The analysts cheered, patted each other on the back. But Kira didn't feel it, not this time. She kept her headset in her hands, tracing the frayed edge of the foam. It was barely noticeable, but she'd felt it through the whole mission. A small imperfection against her ear, like a reminder that nothing ever stayed flawless. Brennan. She turned. Haynes was there again, holding a folder. His tone was careful, measured. Walk with me. They moved through the corridor, past the glass walls and glowing monitors. The hum of air conditioning was the only sound between them. He stopped by the viewing deck, looking out over the training floor below. Good work, he said finally. She didn't answer. You saved a dozen soldiers today. Kira nodded once. One didn't make it. He turned his head. You saw that. I see everything. Haynes exhaled, slow. We confirmed it, a local boy. Civilians were warned to clear the area, but... I know. He looked at her, but she didn't meet his eyes. That's not on you, he said. She almost smiled. Sir, everything that happens after I say cleared hot is on me. Haynes' jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. He knew better than to try to rationalize the kind of guilt only operators understood. You've been doing this job long enough to know the math, he said quietly. You can't carry every name. Kira looked at the floor. Maybe that's the problem. I remember all of them. That night, she couldn't stop thinking about the boy. It wasn't even a clear image, just a flash of white heat, a shape that didn't move after the smoke cleared. Her brain tried to rationalize it, wrong grid, bad optics, anything but what it probably was. But she knew, deep down she always knew. She sat on her couch, radio static playing softly from an old field recorder she'd kept from Helmand. The white noise had once helped her sleep. Now it only made her heart ache. The city outside buzzed, normal life continuing. The contrast felt cruel. She closed her eyes. For a moment she was back there. The sound of rotor blades, the dry air biting her lungs, her own voice in the headset steady while everything around her burned. And under it all, the same thought pulsing quietly. You can't save everyone. But what if that was never good enough? When she returned to the center the next morning, she noticed the way people looked at her. Respectful, admiring even. They'd read the mission report. They saw Reaper 6 and thought legend, not the cost. In the briefing room, Haynes spoke to a group of trainees about situational precision. What you do here, he said, keeps people alive. But the second you forget what it costs, you become dangerous. His eyes flicked briefly toward her. It wasn't accusation, it was understanding. After the briefing, one of the trainees approached her, a young woman maybe 23. Nervous, bright-eyed. Ma'am, can I ask you something? Sure. How do you handle it? The pressure, I mean. Knowing every word you say decides life or death. Kira studied her for a moment. The kid reminded her of herself at that age, hopeful, unscarred. You don't handle it, Kira said softly. You just learn to live with it. The trainee frowned. That sounds hard. It's supposed to be. She didn't smile when she said it. 2 weeks passed. The next operation was supposed to be routine monitoring, not engagement. Kira was fine with that. She needed quiet. But quiet never lasted. The call came at 2300 hours. Emergency tasking. A special operations team ambushed in mountainous terrain. Radio blackout. Command needed someone who could talk to both the pilots and the ground assets through an encrypted relay. Brennan, Haynes said, they asked for you by name. Who did? Captain Mills. Kira froze. Mills as in? Your old platoon sergeant. He's running a recon unit now. They're pinned. For a long second she couldn't move. The last time she'd seen Mills, he was in a hospital bed, leg in traction, his voice steady as he told her, you did good, Kira. You did what you had to. She'd never forgiven herself for that mission. Where are they? She asked finally. Somewhere they shouldn't be, Haynes said grimly. Get to the console. The feed came online. Dark terrain, fractured moonlight over ridgelines, snow at higher elevation, movement markers blinking faintly. Reaper 6, this is Badger 1, do you copy? She knew that voice immediately. Mills, she said quietly. He chuckled even under fire. Kira Brennan, didn't think I'd hear your voice again. Guess I missed your yelling, she said. You and me both. His tone shifted. We're boxed in, need a corridor to exfil, but airspace is tight, too much risk of hitting civilians in the valley. She leaned in. Then we go high. Ridgeline strike, push debris down, block their advance. That's risky. So was Helmand, she replied. You trust me. With my life again. Her hands moved before her thoughts caught up. Coordinates, altitude, vector. The rhythm came back instantly, command under control, precision wrapped in emotion. Hammer flight, this is Reaper 6. Confirm on station. Copy Reaper. 2 F-15s loaded, ready for tasking. Target grid incoming. Marking ridge line east of friendly positions. No strike south of 47 grid, civilians present. Copy, request clearance hot. She hesitated only a fraction of a second, then cleared hot. The sky lit up on the feed, streaks of fire cutting through the clouds. Impact rolled across the ridge like the heartbeat of the earth. Badger 1 movement. Negative, you did it, corridors clear. She closed her eyes and breathed out, long and slow. Mills's voice came through again, softer now. You still got it, Reaper. I never lost it, she said. He laughed, weary but alive. I owe you another beer. Make it 2. After the extraction, the operations center filled with the quiet murmur of relief. But Kira didn't celebrate. She just sat there, headset off, fingers pressed against her temple. Haynes approached. You okay? She nodded. I heard his voice again, sir, after all this time. Haynes smiled faintly. Some ghosts are worth hearing. She didn't disagree. Because this time no one innocent had died. No errors, no shadows left behind. Just a clean corridor, just purpose. And maybe finally peace. She leaned back in her chair, exhaustion pulling at her eyes. For the first time in years, her heartbeat was quiet. Not calm, not numb, just quiet. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. The letter arrived without warning. A single envelope, cream-colored pentagon seal embossed on the corner. No sender name, no subject line, just her address typed neatly in black ink. She stared at it for nearly 5 minutes before opening it. Inside orders, temporary assignment, classified coordination, forward deployed command liaison, Attached note handwritten, "You're the best we've got. Haynes." For a moment, Kira just sat there, the paper trembling slightly between her fingers. She hadn't been forward assigned since she came home. Every part of her life since had been about staying safe, staying controlled. But the truth was, she'd never stopped waiting for this. The world had changed, but the wars hadn't. Only the geography did. The C-17 touched down on a dry airstrip somewhere the map called Training Sector, but everyone else knew better. It wasn't training. It never was. The heat hit her first, thick chemicals smelling of dust and jet fuel. The sound came next. Helicopters somewhere beyond the perimeter, radios calling through layers of static. She stepped off the ramp and adjusted the duffel on her shoulder. Her black ball cap bore no insignia. Her name tag said nothing. A young Marine jogged up, saluting awkwardly. "Ma'am, Reaper 6. She nodded. "Command said to bring you straight in. Operations center's hot." Hot, always hot. Inside the command tent, maps covered every wall. Satellite feeds looped on stacked monitors. The air hummed with tension, the kind that comes when people pretend they're not afraid. A colonel looked up as she entered. "So you're the one Haynes sent." "That's me," she said, voice even. He didn't shake her hand, just gestured at the screen. "We've got a unit stranded west of the mountain line. Weather's killing our comms. Their JTAC's gone dark. We need precision guidance from here or we lose them." "How long do we have?" Kira asked. He looked at his watch. 25 minutes, maybe less. "Let's get to work." She took the seat at the terminal. The world beyond the tent faded until only the screens remained. Drone feed, GPS overlays, wind data, all flickering pieces of a puzzle that could mean life or death. The headset clicked into her ear. "Reaper 6, this is Saber 1. We read you, thank God." "Copy, Saber, what's your status?" "We're pinned under fire. 5 wounded, we can't move." "Understood. We're going to put steel on the ridge above you. Can you mark position?" "Negative, no strobes, too exposed." "All right," Kira said, "then you talk me in." She leaned closer to the monitor, eyes locked on the shifting shapes. The pilot's voice came through next, calm, familiar cadence. "Reaper 6, this is Venom Flight. 2 F-35s on station, holding altitude 20,000 waiting for your call." Her pulse steadied. She knew this language, this rhythm. "Venom Flight, target grid is Sierra 482 by 927. Ridge top, east to west line. Enemy entrenched on high ground." "Copy, we have visual." "Confirm friendlies 300 meters south. You're cleared in from the north, attack heading 170, cleared hot." The first explosion hit like a heartbeat, then another. The feed flashed white, then cleared to reveal dust, smoke, and a scatter of moving figures. The enemy positions were gone. "Saber 1 status." A crackle, then laughter, hoarse but alive. "They're running, Reaper, you nailed it." She smiled faintly. "Copy, stay safe." But even as relief washed through the room, she caught it, the detail no one else saw. A small flicker in the lower quadrant of the thermal feed. Heat signature, not red, blue. A friendly beacon, south of the line she just cleared. Her stomach dropped. She leaned forward, heart slamming. "Saber, confirm your southern boundary. Say again, friendly's last known position." "South Ridge, 300 meters from enemy." Her voice sharpened. "Negative, check again." Static, confusion. Then quietly, "Oh God, one of our patrols moved early. They were closer to the ridge." The colonel swore. "How close?" "Within 100 meters." The room went silent. Kira's hand clenched the mic. She wanted to ask if they were alive, if anyone was still moving, but the words wouldn't form. She already knew the odds. Venom Flight called in. "Target neutralized, Reaper 6. Do you require re-attack?" Her voice came out steady. "Negative, Venom, hold pattern." When the line went dead, she took off her headset. The tent felt suddenly small, too bright. The colonel spoke quietly. "We'll log it as proximity error." She didn't look up. It wasn't an error. "Brennan." "It was a choice," she said, her tone flat, "and it saved the rest of them." He hesitated. "Then you did what you had to." She didn't answer. She heard those words before, and they never made it better. That night she sat outside the tent, staring at the horizon. The desert was colder now. Stars scattered across the black sky like quiet witnesses. In the distance, rotor blades echoed faintly. Another mission, another call. She thought about the patrol she'd lost. A handful of names she didn't even know yet. Somewhere, their families would get a message in the morning. Died in action, friendly fire unlikely. She'd written reports like that once, before she understood how the words didn't mean anything when it was your fault. A soft crunch behind her made her turn. Haynes, he didn't salute. He just stood there, arms crossed, eyes tired. "I thought you'd be here," he said. Kira looked back at the horizon. "You knew it was me." "Of course I did. I signed your orders." Silence stretched between them. "They'll clear you," he said eventually. "No one blames you. The enemy had them boxed in." "That doesn't help," she said quietly. "Not this time." He studied her profile in the moonlight. "You know why I keep sending you out here?" "Because I don't flinch." He shook his head. "Because you care too much. Most people lose that after the first mistake. You never did." Kira gave a small, humorless laugh. "You say that like it's a good thing." "It is," he said. "It's the only thing that keeps this machine from becoming a monster." He turned to leave, then stopped. "Get some rest, Reaper 6. There's always another sunrise." When he was gone, Kira looked down at her hands. They were trembling slightly now. The adrenaline was fading, leaving only the ache. She whispered into the darkness, "There's always another cost." Then she looked up at the sky again. Somewhere out there, the next call was already waiting. And she knew she'd answer. Not because she wanted redemption. Not because anyone would remember her name. But because that was the weight she'd chosen to carry. And maybe, just maybe, it was the only way to keep the world from burning. The base was silent before dawn. That kind of silence that only comes between operations, when everyone is waiting, pretending not to think about what comes next. The tents glowed faintly under floodlights. A generator coughed in the distance. The desert air was cold, sharp in her lungs. Kira sat on a wooden crate outside the command center, cradling a mug of bitter coffee gone lukewarm. Her eyes were dry, her mind blank. She stopped trying to sleep hours ago. Another patrol lost. Another name not yet reported. She didn't even know how many times she'd said the words "cleared hot" in the past month. Too many. Enough that her own voice had started to sound like someone else. She thought of her mother again, steady voice over the radio, guiding people through panic. "Keep talking, honey," her mother used to say. "If you stop, fear fills the silence." That was what Kira did best. She kept talking. Clear, calm, professional, even when her heart cracked under every transmission. A shadow fell across her, Haynes. He was holding 2 cups of coffee. He offered one without speaking. She took it, nodded her thanks. They sat together in silence for a while. Finally he said, "They're pulling us back, stateside." Kira blinked. "All of us." "Most of us. Command wants a review of our targeting protocols. Too many near misses lately. Someone's looking for a scapegoat." She stared at him. "Me." His jaw worked. "You're on the list." She let out a slow breath. "Of course I am." "You knew this was coming," he said softly. "Yeah," she said, "but I thought I had a little more time before they decided I was expendable." He studied her face. "You're not expendable, Brennan. You're the reason half of those teams made it home." She gave him a small, tired smile. "That doesn't matter to the people who didn't." The review board met 3 days later in a cramped room that smelled like paper and recycled air. 5 officers in pressed uniforms, 1 civilian analyst with a laptop and an expression that looked carved from stone. Kira stood at the end of the table, her boots leaving faint prints of dust on the polished floor. A colonel read from the report. Operation Sabre Ridge. Confirmed elimination of 27 hostile combatants, 1 friendly patrol caught within proximity blast, 2 fatalities, classified as operational loss, cause under investigation. He looked up at her. You authorized the strike? Yes, sir. Knowing friendly forces were maneuvering south. I was told they were stationary, she said. Her voice didn't tremble. The ground commander confirmed the boundary twice. And yet, communication delay, she interrupted. By the time they shifted, the bombs were already off the rails. The colonel frowned. You're remarkably calm for someone under review. Kira's eyes stayed locked on his. Calm doesn't mean I don't care, sir. It means I don't panic. The room went still. The civilian analyst typed something without looking up. Ms. Brennan, are you aware of how many lives your coordination has saved during your tenure as Reaper 6? She hesitated. I don't keep count. He nodded as if that was answer enough. Perhaps you should. Haynes, sitting behind her as witness, said quietly, You won't find another controller with her record. She's precise under fire. She's steady when everyone else breaks. The colonel sighed, closing the folder. No one's disputing her skill. We're questioning her stability. Kira almost laughed. Sir, stability's the only reason any of you are still breathing. Haynes coughed into his hand to hide a grin. The colonel didn't smile. You're dismissed. That night she found herself walking through the hangar bays long after everyone else had gone. The smell of fuel and metal filled the air. Rows of aircraft sat under tarp covers, silent, sleeping beasts waiting to wake. She ran a hand along one of the wings. The smooth metal felt cold beneath her fingers. This was the life she knew. The hum of turbines, the language of coordinates and call signs, the quiet understanding that some people are born to protect others no matter the cost. But now they were sending her home again, back to the world of coffee carts and polite small talk. The thought made her chest tighten. She left once before, thinking she could blend in. She couldn't. That part of her was gone, the civilian, the ordinary woman. Now there was only Reaper 6. 2 weeks later she was back in Arlington. Same apartment, same chipped mug. The city outside her window looked the same, but it felt smaller somehow, like she'd outgrown it. She tried to settle back in. She even applied for a teaching slot at the academy, a quieter version of the life Haynes had promised her. But each night when she closed her eyes, she heard the radio again, the clipped voices, the calm under pressure, the seconds before the strike. And always her own voice, steady and certain, cleared hot. She missed that certainty. She missed the purpose. Then one night, as she sat in the dark with her laptop open, a notification pinged, a secure message. No name, just coordinates, and one line of text. They need you again, one last time. Her heart thudded. She didn't reply, not yet. She just stared at the screen, the cursor blinking like a heartbeat. Then she whispered to herself, half in disbelief, half in inevitability, Reaper 6 standing by. When dawn came, she packed a small duffel, 1 pair of boots, 1 radio headset, her old patch from the 75th Ranger Regiment frayed, edges torn. She locked the door behind her and walked into the morning light. There was no music, no fanfare, no goodbye. Just the quiet resolve of someone who'd already made her choice. The cab driver asked where she was going. Kira smiled faintly, back to work. And as the car pulled away, she looked out the window, the city fatting behind her, and thought, maybe this is all I know how to do. Maybe that's enough. Because for some people, peace wasn't a destination. It was the moment before the next call. The breath before cleared hot. And in that silence between chaos and command, Kira Brennan still belonged. It began with silence. No alarms, no calls, no fanfare. Just the steady hum of an aircraft cutting through the night sky. Kira sat strapped into her seat, headset around her neck, eyes fixed on the dull glow of the cabin lights. This wasn't supposed to be her mission. She told herself she was done. But when the message came, when those coordinates appeared on her screen, she hadn't even hesitated. Some part of her already knew. You don't choose when to stop being Reaper 6. The world decides for you. The transport plane jolted as turbulence hit. She looked out the small oval window, saw nothing but darkness. Somewhere below in the mountains, another team waited, pinned, outnumbered just like before. Only this time, there would be no backup. Reaper 6, this is Overlord Command. We're online. Can you confirm link-up? Kira's voice came steady through the headset. Affirmative, Overlord, standing by for tactical overlay. The screens before her filled with maps, comms, chatter, telemetry. The team's locator beacons blinked weakly, half of them fading in and out. Bad signal, worse terrain. Extraction window is closing, a controller said beside her. Enemy reinforcements en route from the east. Kira leaned forward. We've got one chance, she said. We take the ridge, hold their advance, buy enough time for the evac birds to get in. A young operator looked at her nervous. That's a long shot, ma'am. She gave him a faint smile. Every shot's a long shot until you take it. He didn't argue. She switched channels. Falcon Flight, this is Reaper 6. I've got your grid, do you copy? Static then. Reaper 6, this is Falcon 1. Copy loud and clear. It's good to hear your voice again. Her chest tightened. It was Mills. Same to you, Captain, she said. Let's get your people home. Working on it, but we're low on ammo, low on time and surrounded. You got something up there for me. She smiled slightly, always. The drones fed her what they could, grainy images, infrared signatures moving through fog and brush. Every flicker of red meant danger. Every delay meant death. She began assembling the strike pattern, calculating in her head, whispering numbers under her breath. Wind 14 knots, east by southeast. Target elevation 9,200 feet. Reaper 6, this is Falcon 1. They're closing in 50 meters. Copy, laser is active. Hold your position. Just like old times, huh? Mills said through static. Don't remind me. She keyed the mic again. Viper flight confirmed position. 2 F-16s high altitude. Copy, Reaper standing by. Her eyes flicked across the data, searching for one clean vector, one chance to save them. The ridge line was narrow, friendlies close. She couldn't afford another mistake. Not again. Viper attack heading 175. You're cleared hot. The roar filled the feed, the unmistakable thunder of ordnance. Twin strikes lit up the ridge. The ground erupted, fire rolling down the slope like a living thing. Falcon 1 status. Still here, Mills said, voice shaking. You bought us a minute, maybe less. Then let's make it count. More targets appeared on the feed, dozens now, too many. The enemy had numbers and momentum. Reaper 6, this is Viper flight. Winchester on payload, we're out. Her stomach twisted. No more air support. Only her voice, her math, and the soldiers on the ground. Mills, she said quietly, you have to move. Negative, we've got wounded. We're not leaving them. She closed her eyes. Then I'm not leaving you. She keyed another channel. Overlord, I'm requesting emergency close support authorization. Ground-based artillery from forward Battery 9. That sector, out of range, Reaper. Extend the fire mission, she snapped. Manual correction, I'll walk them in myself. Static then, approved, Godspeed. She'd done this before, but never alone. Every call she made now carried the weight of every name she'd lost, every echo of cleared hot she'd ever whispered. She opened the fire grid. and began talking the gunners through. Shift 125, add 200, fire for effect. She could feel the vibration through her headset as the first shells hit wide, too wide. Drop 100, left 50, repeat. The next volley landed closer, dust filled the feed, then impact, direct hit. Good effect, the gunners shouted. Keep firing, she ordered. Keep them off the ridge. Mills's voice came through, strained. We see you, Reaper, we see your work. Just hang on, she said. Minutes dragged like hours. The battle turned into something primal, sound and distance, fire and breath. Then finally, the call she'd been waiting for. Falcon team loaded, all accounted for, we're outbound. Kira exhaled hard, her hands were trembling. Copy that, Falcon, safe flight. Mills's voice cracked through the static, raw and tired. You still never miss. She laughed softly. Tell that to the ghosts. Reaper 6, he said, you've done enough, come home. She didn't answer right away. She just stared at the screen as the dots, friendly markers, moved toward the extraction zone. For the first time in years, she let herself feel it, relief. Then she whispered, more to herself than anyone else, mission complete. The world outside the tent was still dark when she stepped out. The first light of dawn brushed the horizon, soft and golden. She stood there, breathing in the air, letting the quiet wash over her. Haynes approached from behind, his voice low. They made it. They did, she said. He nodded, so did you. She shook her head, not all of me. He didn't argue. He just stood beside her, looking out toward the sunrise. After a long silence, he said, you know, some people fight because they're angry, others fight because they're brave. But you. She turned to him, what about me? You fight because you care. That's rarer than courage. Kira smiled faintly. Caring's what gets people killed. Maybe, Haynes said, but it's also what saves the rest. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of sand and jet fuel and morning. Kira looked out across the horizon, where the sun was just beginning to break. Maybe that's enough, she said softly. Haynes looked at her for a long moment. What will you do now? She thought about it, about the missions, the losses, the ghosts, about the woman who used to pour coffee, invisible. Finally, she said, I'll keep doing what I do best. He raised a brow, which is? Her eyes were on the rising sun when she answered. Listening for the call. She turned and walked away, her boots crunching against the gravel, the light catching on the dog tag that hung beneath her collar. Behind her, the base came to life again. Engines, radios, orders. The sound of duty never really stopped. And as the world awakened, one quiet truth settled in her heart like a steady drumbeat. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.